We're going to go live here. Whoops. Are we going live? Yes, I think we are live. I'm here with my new friend, Angela. How are you doing, Angela?
Hi, thanks for having me on.
Yeah. So thanks for reminding me how I reached out to you. It was because of Kevin Non-Tratty Cat, or however you say that.
Yeah.
Uh, you were on there, and so I reached out to you, and you were nice enough to agree to come on. That was a while ago, though. That was like a month ago.
Yeah, it was at least 2 months ago,
Huh?
maybe three. We were scheduled to sit down
Oh.
about a month ago, but my van broke down in
Uh,
like the
don't tell
ghetto
me, don't
on
tell
my
me.
way home.
Parrots, was it parrots or something? Parrots? You rescue parrots, is that right?
No,
Turtles?
no, no, no.
No?
Mm-mm.
I'm mixing you up with
No,
someone else.
you might be.
Okay, your van
Yeah.
broke down.
Yeah, our van broke down. We went to Mass in South St. Paul. We live west of the Twin Cities. So it's a little bit of a hike for us to go down there. But there's a TLM that we love down there. So we took the drive in, and on our way back, all of a sudden we're realizing, oh, there's a little bit of smoke, and now we can't see out of the back window anymore. And all this stuff. And we realized that there was oil coming out of our exhaust and
Wow.
splattering up behind. It was wild. So yeah, I hung out in the ghetto with all five of my kids by myself for a few hours while my husband hitched a ride back with AAA and then came back to pick us up. Yeah, it was quite the day.
Wow. Did you interact with the locals, the natives?
Oh, I mean, a little bit, yeah, because we were hiking around on foot, I mean, me and then my five young kids. My oldest is 8, and my youngest is about 16 months old. So, yeah, I mean, it was interesting. The area has a lot of more poverty. It's kind of, I mean, if anyone knows where Fridley, Minnesota is, it doesn't have the greatest reputation for being a stellar community. There's a lot of garbage and all kinds of stuff on the road. It was. I mean, we lived, and the good Lord was he watched over us. So
Nice.
it was funny, but
Scary. Yeah, well, I'm up in Canada where everyone's nice and nothing bad ever happens.
ooh,
Nothing bad ever
yeah,
happens.
never.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. So, yeah, so let's go all the way back to your childhood and tell me about your mother. And no, I'm just kidding. But
Oh dear.
no, this is not a psychological evaluation. This is a spiritual journey. Like, when did you realize that there's a God and that he loves you and there's a
Yeah.
church and Jesus Christ, God became man, and really, really early impressions, like maybe you went to church with Granny or something. I don't know. Maybe your parents took you to church. You'll tell us the whole story, just touching on the highlights, okay?
Okay. Yeah. So I think as a child I just naturally had strong inclinations to the spiritual. Our home life was a little bit there was some turmoil, and so I recall even as a young child seeing demonic spirits and things like that, but I also had a strong devotion to my guardian angel and things like that. I was raised in a pretty nominally Catholic family. My biological dad is not Catholic. So we went to church on Sunday, but that was pretty much it. But I just always had this inclination. And as I got older, I mean, it stayed pretty nominal, but in my teen years, I got involved, even though I was not living my Catholic faith the best. I never doubted the truth of the Catholic faith in my teen years, even when all of my friends were very charismatic, evangelical, Baptist kind of thing. Yeah, so I taught religious ed. I did all of that stuff, and then I went to college, and there I was sort of confronted with a lot of liberalism that I wasn't used to. I grew up in a very small town. And so I realized I kind of had to either be able to defend, I just think of St. Paul being able to have a defense for my faith, or I needed to acquiesce and maybe acknowledge that there was something to this worldliness that I was seeing. And so that's when I sort of did my first deep dive on the Mass, and I read Edward Surree's A Biblical Walk Through the Mass, and that was transformative for me. That was a pivotal moment. And then I got involved in pro-life work and became a pro-life activist as well. And that, I think, loving the preborn and having an appreciation just for God's creation that way really also did a lot to grow my faith. And so I don't know, now several years later, I've been married for over 10 years. My husband converted right before our wedding, and his first Holy Communion was actually on our wedding day.
Oh,
But
no way.
yeah, but he was actually baptized Catholic. He didn't even know it. So when he started his conversion process coming into the church, and he was gathering all of his paperwork, getting ready for our wedding, all of a sudden he realized that he was baptized Catholic. And I thought, of course, like your baptismal grace was manifesting itself in this process. And it's just been amazing since then, just to see the growth that has happened, and finding a good community. All of that stuff has really transformed both of our lives. I was kind of a heathen in college. Just we both, we lived not great lives. So, I mean, the conversion process was a slow and painful one. And it's always happening every single day. But yeah, that's kind of where I started and where I am now.
Cool. I'm gonna dig in a little bit deeper. I just want to give a shout out. I
Yeah.
got it's just hilarious. I got like a female guest and two women in the live chat. I want to shout out to my friend Emily and Haley Luya. You might have encountered her on the Catholic blogger sphere or whatever it is. Like
I'm
she
like you, I
moderates on
kind
some
of stay out
channels.
of it.
Okay.
I'm not, yeah.
She's
Mhm.
saying that you're awesome, so she knows you.
Oh,
So
thank you. Maybe I would, is it Haley Luya?
yeah, I want to say hallelujah, but she told me it's
I know.
Haley. Her name's
It's okay.
Haley.
So
So
yes, no, I'm good. We know each other very well. I'm also a contributor on the Meaning of Catholic. So yeah,
So you know her.
occasional. It's been very rare.
Have you
Yeah.
seen her in real life? Do you know what she looks like?
No, I mean, I've seen her, but I mean, she lives in Wisconsin, so we haven't actually met in person. No,
Okay, well
she's in the background.
her thumbnail is about the size of the end of my eraser here.
Yeah.
So I can't quite make out her face,
You
but
have
she
to
looks like
join Telegram.
looks like a beautiful young woman. I don't know. But
Haley's
anyway,
awesome.
anyway, I've been hounding her to come on, and talk to me on, and she agreed to
Oh,
do it.
awesome.
She agreed to do it, but we'll see when. Well, that's the question, when.
Mm-hmm.
So, people think I'm weird because when I have a guest on, usually it's a man, and I always say, "Oh, can I meet your wife? Can your wife come on?" And they probably think that I'm just like trying to, like, see what the wife looks like. But I'm gonna ask you. Like, I
Oh,
wanna
funny.
meet your husband. I wanna meet him. I wanna know his story. I wanna get
Oh,
his side of the story. So when we're done here, you'll go and you'll ask him to get in touch with me if he's interested in sharing his side of the story. Has he done any podcasting at all? He's come on and talked about a story.
he is extremely introverted.
Oh,
And like, yeah, he's not, communications is not his strength.
he could just
When I
grunt.
say
He
we are
could just.
complimentary, we are complimentary almost in the extreme. Yeah.
Okay, so you're extrovert.
I mean, I probably pass off as extroverted, but I think I'm more of an introvert. I navigate that really easily.
Cool. Yeah, I'm starting to think that I'm actually an introvert. I thought I was
Me
mixed.
too.
I thought I was mixed, but getting older, I'm starting to feel more comfortable with the introvert thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, me too. I kind of wonder if motherhood did that a little bit for me, of
Oh
like,
yeah.
there's so much noise and like people constantly needing things from me. I just want to be alone for a little bit. So
Absolutely. So you didn't mention, or maybe you did, I didn't listen. You didn't mention siblings.
oh yeah.
What's the story there as far as you're able to tell us?
Yeah. It gets a little tricky. So my parents divorced when I was about 6 years old, and I was one of four girls.
Okay.
And then my mom remarried, and this gentleman, my stepdad, had two kids. He was a single dad with two kids. And so then we were a family of six. And then my youngest brother, who just is starting his senior year of high school, was born when my mom was 45 years old and I was a teenager. So there's a huge age gap there. And then, and then later, I have a sister that passed away in a car accident. So there are five surviving siblings at this time.
How old
Yeah.
was she when she passed away?
Yeah. So she was 27. She was just a
Oh.
few days away from her 28th birthday.
Oh, oh, that's
Mhm.
tragic. Yeah. So, yeah, I'm a little bit curious, what impact your life and your faith, because obviously you're on fire for Christ and His church. what
Mhm.
impact that might have had on your parents, especially, but also your siblings, not to mention, friends and acquaintances.
Yeah.
Can you just talk a little bit about, not, not to brag about how you've changed everyone's lives, but if you
No,
have,
yeah.
if you've been instrumental in the grace of God, I'd like to hear about it.
Yeah, that's really an interesting question. I think it has changed over time, right? So, on my biological dad's side of the family, I'm kind of the devil. I'm the worst of the worst because
Oh,
they are very liberal and not Christian at all. They have a lot of
oh,
animosity towards Catholicism. And so they think I'm pretty much the worst person ever, which is
oh,
unfortunate because they don't really know me, and they live in Virginia. I live in Minnesota. We don't know each other that well. So that's been unfortunate. And on my mom's side of the family, I think I'm more, considered a little bit more extreme amongst my siblings. At times when I was really, there have been times when I've been very overzealous almost and pushy. And I acknowledge that there have been times where that's been a problem. Um, Thanks be to God, I think that has changed. And I have a twin sister that just recently came back into the church.
oh,
And her fiance just came into the church on Easter, and they spent a lot of
oh,
time with my husband and I. So he came into the church, became Catholic, was baptized, the whole thing. And then they're having a full Catholic mass for their wedding in December. So that's one thing. I have
oh,
another sister. I spoke about her a little bit on the podcast with Kevin, but she's in a same-sex quote unquote marriage. And she's making her way back into the church. And so we have these very
oh,
lengthy conversations about, she went back to reconciliation even. She's going to
oh.
mass. She prays a rosary every
I'd like to
day.
interview her. I just had, I don't know if you noticed, I had Father James Martin on, so I'd like to interview
Oh,
her and
oh, wow.
see what she
Yeah, it's
thinks.
really interesting. I mean, we talk for hours, and I can tell that this is a real stirring in her heart, and she is really a different person. But yeah, there's just that part of her life, and I've learned to be really gentle with that,
Yeah,
and because I think it's really hard. I talked about this with Kevin too. It's like you have somebody who went away from the church for a really long time, and they created a new life, and they really care about these other people, and they start to come back to Christ, and they have these strong connections with people. It's really hard to sever that. And so, as much as however I feel about it, that's a lot to ask somebody to give up right away, when
mm,
they're still making their way back. You know what I
for
mean? So I'm
sure.
just trying to be a resource and a connection for her, and we get to have some really amazing conversations about our faith and where she's at. It's been honestly inspirational for me because I just know where she has been, and it's amazing to see God's hand. Like the first time we talked about her coming back to the church, I just got off the phone with her and I started weeping because I was like, this is the person I thought was too far gone. And I could hear God saying to me, like, oh, you have little faith. Oh, you have little faith. And I just was like, you are so right. I have no faith. I'm just like Peter, I'm just like Peter. And yeah, it's been very beautiful.
Amazing. Wow. So yeah, in all seriousness, I would like to invite her on. She's free to say
Yeah.
yes or no or maybe or whatever.
Yeah.
I invite, if you don't know me by now, I invite everyone, absolutely
Yeah.
everyone on my podcast. So some people say yes, and I appreciate that. And there's a certain,
Mm-hmm.
if you're not ready or able or willing, that's fine. But a lot of people are,
Yeah.
and it's really interesting, exciting to meet people, and it's exciting to meet people that are connected to my guests. So like I love that. So the Lisney brothers, I got Aiden, Kieran, his uncle Mark that have come on.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
hoping to interview their father, Mark's brother. So
Wow.
it's like I like to sort of see how these things fit together because
Yeah.
they inform me a little bit more about different aspects of the guest.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
I think it's fun for the audience too. I just want to give a shout out to Prepping for Heaven. I don't know,
Oh, prepping for heaven. You're
is
awesome.
this a guy, a girl, or I've seen them
I
around.
guess I'm not sure. I should maybe know by now. I feel like they're on a lot of my streams.
Let us
So
know in the live chat, Prepping for Heaven. I'm assuming it's a guy, but I don't know.
I know that's okay. I know. I feel like I always assume male almost unless the
Yeah.
handle is explicitly feminine.
Yeah, because the online world is dominated by, oh, it's a woman.
Okay, there was a part of me that thought it was a woman. So it's funny. Yes. Okay.
So, yeah, that's cool. So it's like a bunch of women on my podcast, which is great, which is
That's
great. It's
awesome.
amazing. Um, you know, I'm really curious about you mentioned that early on, you had some trouble in the family, woundedness, and these sorts of
Hmm.
things, as we all do, to greater or lesser extent.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
I remember my childhood, being very much connected to the spiritual world and dream life, and not
Hmm.
not very connected to this plane, this world. Out of
Yeah.
it, my sisters described me as being in my own bubble, and I was the youngest, so I was a bit spoiled and coddled, and
Oh,
I may have
yeah.
some issues, I don't know, but
Oh.
I do remember having very demonic dreams and visions and dark
Hmm.
stuff, Um, and it's sad, it's sad for an innocent child to experience that, but it's part of intergenerational trauma, and I
100%
I
yes. Hmm.
believe, I believe everything the church teaches, including the dark stuff and demons, and
Yep.
we make contract deals with the devil, and that goes down to our offspring and for many generations. And I don't know. I went to an exorcist priest, and he did some deliverance prayers with me, and I renounced this and that
Hmm.
and the other thing, because I was deep into the New Age, and I was a Satanist and everything
Wow.
else
Wow.
before my conversion in 2009. I was an atheistic Satanist, but
I
still.
should interview you on my podcast. You're,
Sure.
you should come on.
Sure.
Wow.
Yeah. What is the name of your podcast? And can you bend your head down so I can see what's written under Our Lady there?
Oh, I tread where I
Ah,
please. uh,
ah,
yeah, there it is.
cool.
Um, um, my podcast is called Integrated with Angela Erickson. And so a lot of that, there's so many reasons why I chose that title, but really it has to do with the integration of the spiritual and the physical, and integrating them properly so that we can be properly disposed to God's grace and live lives that really serve him. And yes, I think a lot of those wounds that are present because of generational sin, those manifest throughout our lives, and they can really do a lot of damage and prevent us from that integration. And the way that that trauma, for example, is sort of somatically in the body, right? Like there are these true manifestations in the body. I mean, I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease when I was 19. And yeah, there are a lot of things there, right? And a lot of mental illness in my family, things like that. So yeah, that was part of the reason why this became very important to me. So the spiritual aspect and what you're describing there, really interesting stuff when you're talking about being a Satanist and what you're exposing yourself to on a metaphysical level, but it really manifests itself physically too.
Yeah, I still get not to make you blush or anything, but I still, get just last night I had a wet dream, and like
Mm,
I'm still harassed by the demons, like with sexuality and all that sort
mm,
of stuff. So
yeah,
you'll pray for me. But
absolutely.
normally I'm talking to guys about this stuff, but anyway, since I've got you here and you're a woman and they're women in the live
Hmm.
chat, I should ask you, like, do these demons of lust bother women during puberty or even after?
Mm.
Or not
Yeah,
so
I think
much?
it probably depends on the person and what has happened to them or what trauma there is. Um, I haven't talked much about this publicly, but I was my biological dad very much engaged in grooming behaviors from the time I was a small child, and there there are some questions there about what transpired, we'll say. And so that wasn't something that I didn't have like strong desires to be sexual. There were people like if I fell hard for somebody, that was it. I was
You wanted the
loyal to
attachment.
a fault.
You wanted the
Yes.
a
Yep, the
connection, the
attachment,
connection.
yes. And I see that more now as I get older, and of course, the type of people I was attracted to were extremely unhealthy, and so there was a lot of manipulation and abuse, like mental abuse, taking advantage of lots of things like that that I see now as an adult, and it breaks my heart for that young woman that I was trying to be loved, you know? Um, so yeah, I think it really depends on the person, how that comes about, how that manifests, and what their experiences are like, what type of traumas they have been, whatever they've gone through, and also some of those generational curses. It probably has to, kind of like a Rubik's cube of sorts,
Yeah,
where you sort of get
yeah.
all this stuff together, and you might get this kind of an outcome.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Um, since you're opening up about stuff, what about your relationship with food? Do women struggle? Because I struggle with food, even though I'm not trying to look hot. But women, they usually want to look hot, especially at a certain age, that when they're younger and trying to get a
Mm,
mate. So I've heard a lot of stories about it. My wife doesn't have this, but I've heard stories about women struggling with their relationship with food. I mean, I struggle because I like everything that's bad for me, sugar, salt, and fat. And
mhm.
luckily, my metabolism is such that I can eat whatever I want, and it doesn't bother me, whatever. I don't get
Mhm.
too fat. But and I'm not trying to look good. My wife thinks I look good, but that whatever for whatever reason. But with women, I want you to touch on sort of as a woman, is it more
Mhm.
important? Like, do women have more neuroses about it? Did you go through anything like
Mm.
that with eating disorders or almost eating disorders or anything?
Yeah, no, not intentionally anyway. I grew up in a home where I feel like food was somewhat restricted. And so if I was restricting my own diet, it wasn't on purpose. I was an athlete, I was very involved in school. But just like there weren't good eating habits in my home. So like I think that contributed somewhat to the autoimmune disease that I have. I was just undernourished.
Oh,
That's part of it. I mean, not that my mom was like intentionally
no, of
like
course.
threatening. It wasn't like withholding food as a punishment or anything like that. It's just that there just wasn't enough. I don't think there was enough of an understanding of how much a growing teenager needs to eat. And so like I would come home from track meets, and late at night dinner wouldn't maybe be ready yet, or here's a chewy bar and this is your snack, now get out of the kitchen, kind of a thing. And that's just not enough
Yeah.
for a teenager who is really active. And so and then when you're not eating enough, your body naturally throws itself into survival mode, and you lose your metabolism basically says, okay, you're in survival mode because you're not slowing down, you're not taking time to eat. So we're just going to tamp down your appetite so you don't even realize you're hungry.
Oh,
And so that's why a lot of people, if they don't eat in the morning right away, they might not be hungry. Like their body kind of
uh-huh,
gets habituated to that, and it ruins your metabolism
uh-huh,
to not break the fast in the morning, if this
uh-huh.
is something you're doing chronically. And if you get up and you start eating within 30 to 60 minutes in the morning, you're going to find out that you're going to be really hungry in about 2 hours, 3 hours. A lot of people notice that. It's because you're telling your metabolism, all right, it's go time and we're safe. We can sit down, we can eat, and you're burning energy. You're not in survival mode. And so your metabolism fires normally.
Yeah, you remember the Biggest Loser reality show?
Yes, I
The
never watched it, but yes.
the trainers would always say you have to have your engine running. You need fuel. You need
Yep,
fuel
you
to
do.
lose
Your
weight.
body
To
does.
lose weight, it seems paradoxical, but you have to eat, you have to fuel that engine in order
Hmm.
to lose the weight.
Otherwise, the
So,
body holds on to it because it's surviving.
uh,
Um, some women like will struggle to lose weight because of my autoimmune disease and however it operates in my body. I have a hard time gaining weight. The only time I
uh,
really gain weight is when I'm pregnant, and I gain it very quickly.
just stay pregnant.
Um, Exactly. I was pregnant for how many years straight? This is the longest I've not been pregnant from between kids. So, but yeah, I mean, I struggle to gain weight, and I think some of that upbringing of just not eating properly, I'm sort of undoing a lot of that and trying to retrain my body, I guess, to eat in normal intervals and nourish myself with whole foods, you know?
Yeah. Well, you seem very balanced and very chill, especially for like a trad, whatever, because I don't identify as trad.
Mm-hmm.
But I took a look at. I don't want to learn too much about you before the interview, so I didn't look too deeply. But I saw a couple things like you had that guy Flanders. What's his name? Timothy Flanders.
Tim
Is
Flanders?
he Canadian?
No, 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 no. So Tim Flanders runs Meaning of Catholic, and he's the editor at 1 Peter 5.
Oh, okay. Is
Mhm.
he trad? Is he very trad or no?
He's pretty traditional, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Hmm.
I'm thinking of the Canadian guy who's definitely a rad trad. I think he's SSPX. You might know him.
Kennedy Hall?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I keep
yeah.
trying to get him on my
It's
show.
Yeah, yeah, Kennedy Hall. I've never talked to him in person. He used to be a part of Meaning of Catholic, but he sort of left around the same time that I came on. So we like have mutuals, I guess. Um, so yeah.
Cool, cool. Yeah. So the whole thing with the like what I was saying about you being balanced and very chill, is because there's a tendency. I think if you get conservative with your Catholicism, there's a tendency to get a little bit uptight and judgy and stuff like that. And I've
Oh,
seen
yeah.
that. I've seen that on the internet. I haven't seen it with my guests because I've had some, conservative, tratty guests on my show, and they were just lovely people and really chill and cool.
Yeah.
Um, but online, maybe it's just the internet, maybe it's just the written word. It's you can't read the tone or whatever, you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
I don't know. It's probably a little bit of both, you know? Yeah.
You've seen some of what I'm talking about a little bit.
Oh my goodness, yes. I did a whole episode on this on my own podcast. What was it? Something about Trad Inc. I did a whole I did a screed on it. And I talked about Trad Inc. because I do like to identify more as a traditionalist. And yet I am seeing a lot of the same misogyny that you're seeing, a lot of the same anger, things like that. And I think it's it's an overreaction to feminism, right? Because
Uh,
the pendulum is swinging, and
uh,
um yeah, we just got to stop that. Like, where's the joy? If we're Catholic and we believe
yeah.
that joy is a fruit of the Holy Spirit, why is there no joy over here? I don't want to hang out with you if you're not edifying, or you're just sucking the air out of the room. So no, I think it's a problem, and it makes me not want to identify as trad, even though I am. Yeah,
Yeah, of course, I love tradition and I submit to
absolutely.
tradition, and so I just prefer not to have any prefixes or qualifiers on my Catholic. You know what I mean? I'm very jealous for
Right.
that, for Christ and His church. I just want to keep it like focused and not like,
Well, but why are we so focused on everyone else? Like, I need to focus on my own holiness. I don't need to worry about yours. I mean, it's one thing if you're being flagrantly heterodox and things like that, where it's a scandal, that's fine. But I don't like my podcast. I'm not going to sit there and every time somebody says something stupid, I'm not going to do a video on it and like, Angela Erickson owns so and so, right? Like it's so
oh,
stupid. And I think it's so funny because there are these egos in this world of like Catholic commentary. And I've been doing Catholic radio for a long time for like our local Relevant Radio affiliate. And I've been on Relevant Radio. I've been interviewed on like Morning Air and stuff. And I've been on the Drew Mariani show, whatever. But I think it's so funny because I'm like, you are a small fish in a small pond. Nobody knows who you are. I mean, outside of like Catholic Twitter. So knock it off. Stop with the ego. It's just ridiculous. I don't know.
my
I can't
our
anymore.
friend our friend Haley is saying that that Tim is really cool and that I'd love him, and you
Tim is a
you
good guy.
know him, right?
So does Haley. Yeah, Haley does a lot of the back end stuff for a
Okay.
lot of channels.
No, but
Yes.
my point here is that
Yeah.
because you know him and because now we're besties, you can ask him to come on my show. So
Yeah.
that's
I'll start my invite list here. I need to
yeah,
pen
yeah,
and
yeah. Well,
paper.
basically you could just
My
anyone.
husband, my
Yeah,
sister, Tim
exactly, exactly.
Flanders.
Send people my way. Send people my way.
Okay.
There is a little problem though. I joined PodMatch, and I keep gushing about PodMatch because it's like this dating site for podcasters and guests.
Oh.
So you just, instead of romance, it's about like guests and host meeting.
Weird.
Okay.
Interesting.
So I'm meeting all these people that want to be guests on a podcast, and so my calendar suddenly is full, like because I work full time. So
Wow.
I've only got evenings and weekends, and whatever slots my wife allows me to open up, like I've sort of
Hmm.
stretched her generosity a little bit.
Mm,
And I've filled my calendar between now and Christmas. So it's like, it's
wow.
amazing. So if you're the type of podcast guest or host that's looking to meet other guests and hosts or whatever, I
Mm,
mean, I pay $6 a month, and I mean, I feel weird because I'm so anti like promoting or endorsing anything, like I
yeah.
always am. But it's just so cool, like
Are
that
they
I've been able to
paying
meet
you?
people. No, they're not paying me. They're not paying me. They're not paying me. I'm not a shill. But I'm actually going to interview. I'm actually going to interview the founder of the thing. Like I've been chumming up with the guy, and he loves me
Oh, sweet.
because I'm like doing free promo for him all the time, right? And so they're
That's so
sending me
funny.
the shirt. I'm going to wear their shirt, and but
That's so
they're not
funny.
paying me. Like they've given me one T-shirt, and I pay them. But
Yeah.
it's the same thing, with my podcast. It's a losing proposition all the way around because I enroll all my guests in a perpetual mass. That costs me a bit of money, and
Mm,
I don't make money from the podcast.
I
Not
don't either.
not
Yeah.
enough to cover the expenses, and I like it that way. I prefer it that way because I've seen what happens when you start to have to cater or you have to fulfill some expectation or whatever, and I'd rather be free from that,
Hmm.
personally. But some people become caricatures of themselves just because they do the what do they call it? The analytics, and they see what sells and what doesn't, and so
Yeah.
they just do more of what gets clicks,
Well,
right?
that's why you get so much clickbait and like the rage
Yeah.
bait. That's why, because it sells. Like, so
Uh,
that's the other thing that
uh,
I talk about a little bit on that episode of Trading. Cause like, how many of us as Catholics are jumping on to every single podcast? We're constantly consuming, consuming, consuming.
uh,
And then you're upping the analytics for these like high emotive episodes, things like that. And you're fueling this anger, whether you realize it or not, like
mm,
maybe not on purpose. And that's one thing that I think we need to do more is like step away from the technology. And as the kids say these days, go touch grass. Like, go touch grass. Go have real relationships like that. I say that about my own podcast. I will never be able to keep up with the Joneses on my podcast because I'm a homeschooling mom with 5 kids. I can't put out content constantly, and I'm not going to put content out just for the sake of putting out content. I think that's where a lot of podcasters go wrong because they feel like they have to because the algorithm then pushes them up because
mm.
you get more ad revenue, all of that stuff. I'm just not going to ever be able to do that. And so, sorry, I don't want to. I want to live my life and enjoy my children.
Yeah, I'm very proud of you. I love big families, and congratulations on being a mom, a wife,
Oh,
and all
thank
that.
you.
I don't have, well, I don't know, you don't know me, but I don't have any kids. I'm happily married, but to an anti-Catholic, violently anti-Catholic woman. She's culturally Greek Orthodox, so
Oh, okay.
she really hates the Pope and the papacy and the church. Um, but anyway, I try not to talk about her, but I love her so much. I always end up talking about her on the podcast, but she doesn't want me talking about her. But basically the thing is, she's the reason I started the podcast because I was annoying all my family and friends when I converted. As you know, that's usually the way it goes, right? For a convert,
Yeah.
so excited, I want to
Mhm.
tell everyone about Catholicism. And she said, stop annoying everyone in real life. Go annoy people on the internet who actually care, right? Find some people who care and annoy them. So, because I was talking about philosophy and theology and the church and everything. So, for me, it's really fun. It's a fun hobby because I work full time, but it's so exciting because I get to be instrumental in grace with prayer, meeting people, praying for them, and doing the perpetual
Mm,
masses, enrolling them in that, and having them pray for me, so it helps me and
mm.
my family. And but beyond all that spiritual stuff, it's just fun. Like, I mean, I get to meet you and find out what you're like, and I've met so many people, and even famous people or whatever. And I even interviewed Michael Lofton. I like him. What do you think about Michael Lofton?
I don't watch a lot of his stuff.
Okay, we'll leave it at that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I like him. It was a little bit awkward. Like, it wasn't like, you're very natural, but he was a little bit less natural. And I asked him about that. Like, are you the same in real life as you are on the podcast? And he said, oh yeah, yeah, I am. Because
Hmm.
I don't know, but I like him. I do like him a lot, and he responds to my emails and stuff, and I like him, and
Oh, that's nice.
hopefully he'll come
Hmm.
back. But I think some people when they are a public figure or they have a certain following, maybe they're just a little bit more cautious.
Yeah.
But my thing is meeting people, whatever. So I wanted to ask, what's your thing? What's your thing with the podcast? I haven't listened to it. Is it about people and their stories? Like I get a lot of conversion stories and stuff like that, or faith
Yeah.
journeys. What is it about it for you on your podcast? You
Oh,
you mentioned the integration of the physical and the spiritual, but what
yeah.
else?
So there's a lot. I mean, I cover conversion stories. I talk about current social events, a lot of abortion and pro-life
Okay,
stuff.
cool.
Um,
You always
I'm
have
actually
guests or not always?
almost always, so anything that's published on the podcasting platform is going to have it's an interview, it's going to be a guest. But on my actual YouTube channel, every once in a while I'll publish these screeds where I just rant about something or a few things. But I haven't been able to do as many of those recently, but I enjoy doing those. And then yeah, like I mean I cover everything. I mean I've talked about domestic violence. I will be interviewing a survivor of child sex trafficking this upcoming week, and I'll be interviewing Keith Nestor next week. I've talked about adult children of divorce, what that's like, what divorce is like for children. I interviewed Layla Miller on her book Primal Loss for that. Talked to Carrie Gress about the Anti-Marry Exposed. I mean, I really cover a wide array of things. Yeah.
Wow. Did you ever have, this is a sort of an awkward question, but did you ever have bad chemistry with the guest or not?
You know, there have been a couple of times. Yeah. I mean, not everyone is easy to interview. I won't say who, but I did have one interview with an academic, and you know, they were extremely precise in their answers, and they didn't sway much, so it made it hard to lead the conversation because their answers were so succinct, and you know what I mean? It's like
Yeah, yeah,
they
yeah.
just so there was no, it sort of was really hard to pull them and lead the conversation, right? Like you kind of want your guest. I tell some people sometimes, like if you want me to go in a certain direction, you are more than welcome to lead that in your answers so that I can bring you there. Or if there's a certain topic you want to talk about, let me know so I can make sure we try and get it in. But yeah, sometimes these academics, they are just they're too precise and they're so succinct. So yeah, that was a particularly tough one, but a lot of people loved it. It was a great interview, I guess. So I don't know. Thanks be to God.
I've had a couple of guests, won't name any name, I might name one name, but who I said, hey, so can you tell us a little about yourself? And then for an hour they just didn't stop talking, and I literally didn't say anything.
That's so funny.
Have you ever had
That's the
that?
other end. Yes. Oh yeah. I mean, I don't know if I've had that on my podcast, but doing radio interviews, yes. Yes.
Oh.
Mhm.
And sometimes it's justified, like in the case of I saw him on your site,
Jeremiah Bannister.
yeah,
I knew it.
just when he lost his child, it was around that time. This is a while ago. This was a while ago. And so
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to criticize him because he had a lot of stuff to get off his chest.
Yeah.
But I want to have him back. I mean, I do like him,
He's
but
a great human.
yeah, he's a deep guy. Like I said, I don't watch Catholic content, but I like the guy. But he
Mhm.
was one of the ones that had a lot to say. It was good.
I'm not surprised. Yeah, I love Jeremiah. We actually, we did like a meaning of Catholic retreat weekend earlier this summer. It
Ah,
was the first one ever, and my
ah,
family stayed at the Bannister household, and then we were
wow.
trekking every day back to Tim Flanders' house with a bunch of other people. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. Hmm.
Wow. So you've met a few people in real life
Yeah,
from the
yeah, it was
Catholic
super
world?
fun. Yeah. Yep.
Cool. Wow. Yeah. So I had a guest on my show. He was part of the Colby Center because I'm a young Earth creationist. I don't know about you, but we could talk about that. But
Yeah, I don't have strong opinions on that. So you can
okay.
make your case to me, and
We
then
won't talk
I'll
about it.
I'll
We
tell
won't.
you.
We won't talk about it. It's not important. But I met a guy in Canada. He was like the head of the Canadian branch or whatever of the Colby Center. I don't know if you know their work at all, but
I have heard of the Colby Center, but no, I'm not
okay.
super familiar.
Oh, okay. Anyway, he flew out with his whole family. He's got like big family. Like at the time, I think he had 9 kids or something. And so I got to meet him, and but that's one of the very, very rare occasions where I actually get to meet a guest. And I've grown so close with a few, like a half dozen or so of my guests, they're like, friends, brothers, whatever. Has that
Hmm.
happened to you where you are on the opposite side of the country, but you've interacted so many times or so
Mm.
deeply that you made friendships, real friendships?
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty used to that just because the work that I've done has always been traversing the country. So I worked for Students for Life of America for a while. So our staff were all over the country, and I coordinated a 5-state area. And then I did a pregnancy center thing. I ran a pregnancy center for a couple of years, and then I worked for LifeSiteNews. So all of our all of our staff were all over the place. And so I'm very familiar with that, having long distance friendships. But yes, even doing the podcast, I started sort of in a little group called Traditional Transmissions. That's what we called ourselves. And so a small group of podcasters got together, and we would go on each other's shows all the time and help promote each other's work and things like that. And some of those people to now it's been almost, oh man, at least a year and a half, almost 2 years that we've been talking regularly. And some of those people are my closest friends. And then I have others, listeners to my podcast too. I have a friend of mine. We actually FaceTime and call each other often. I mean, we have a
Cool.
few times now, but yeah, we're super close. We talk almost every day.
Oh, and what's
Um,
the male to female ratio on your listeners?
Honestly, I'm not sure. So I don't
50-50?
do all of my analytics or
Yeah, yeah,
anything
yeah.
because I just don't have the time anymore. Um, if I were to guess, it's probably my guess is 2/3 women, 1/3 men.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, there are a lot of guys that listen to my podcast. Most of my Patreon supporters are men.
Do men hit on you even though they know you're married?
No,
Okay.
no. Isn't that surprising?
That is surprising.
I mean, every once in a while I get one really gross message on Twitter or something. And
Yeah,
and
yeah.
like every once in a while there are a couple people that maybe send me messages more than they should.
Sure.
And then you disengage. But no, I mean, I've had times when if people do, I call them out. Like, yeah.
Your husband's cool with you being putting yourself out there kind of thing?
He is the reason I started my podcast, much
Oh,
like your
no
wife.
way.
Yeah. Yes. So
Ah,
he's totally good with it.
no
No, he's
way.
used to it. He's used to me doing public speaking and things like that. So, no, he actually wanted me to do it because I think he was seeing that I needed some kind of an outlet, and that uh, I'm a very passionate person. And so I like to talk about things like you. I think we're probably a little similar there. So he was like, you should just have your own podcast and talk to people about whatever it is that you want to talk about. And
Cool.
so, yeah, he was fully on board with that.
Very cool. I really want you to hound the hell out of him until he comes and talks to me because he sounds interesting.
He's a good dude. Hmm.
Um, I see the picture of Mother Teresa with Pope Saint John Paul
Hmm.
II there, so uh, that's pretty cool. I'm banned from LifeSite News
Are
because
you?
because I because I defended Bergoglio.
Mm,
I had the the nerve to defend Bergoglio.
yeah.
So I'm not a fan of LifeSite News. I'm not a fan of Dr. Taylor Marshall. I'm not a fan of a whole bunch of very popular things. Like
Yeah.
even Michael Voris and the Church Militant. I don't think he's, I happen to like the guy. I feel sympathy for him, but his
Hmm.
his whole outfit, I think they also fall into the whole
Oh my goodness.
the
Yeah.
Bergoglio bashing thing.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, you worked for LifeSite News.
Hmm.
So what's it like
Yeah. So it was.
in that aspect of anti-Bergoglio?
Yeah, at the time, let's see, it was the summer of shame. So that's when like the McCarrick scandal broke. Um, that's when I worked there for about a year. I was doing donor development for them, working with their major donors. And honestly, they were probably the best employer I've ever worked for in terms of how they treated staff and all of that stuff. Um, I think after I left, things changed a little bit. So I had even gone from after I quit, I loved working there so much. I was a monthly donor. And eventually I was like, I can't support you anymore. Actually, I remember in one of my interviews even saying to that, or in my interview when I got hired, I said, I have some questions though, because like some of your fundraising letters and things like that, they have a certain affect and
Oh,
it seems ragey. I don't think I worded it quite this way, but I was like, I don't know how I feel about that. Can you explain this a little bit to me? And they explained it, and it was whatever their answer was sufficient. Where I thought, okay, like that makes sense. And you guys I can see that they genuinely feel that way. They don't feel like they're being clickbaity or whatever. It seems sincere to me. I know that there have been things that have transpired since I left, and yeah, I don't know. I don't support them as much as I used to. I think there are good people there though, and I do think that they're trying to do the right thing. But yeah, I don't know. I get what you're saying. I don't follow Taylor Marshall. I don't like I said, I don't follow a lot of Catholic content for that reason.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. So yeah, I think we have to be, you know, wise as serpents and innocent as doves,
Yeah.
you know? So
Yeah.
yeah.
So, because my people don't really like it when I say this, but my pet peeve is conservative Catholics and the rad trats. But when it comes to the left, oops, are you still there?
Oops,
Is it
I'm sorry.
is it something
Yeah.
is it something I said?
Let me double check.
There we
Oh,
go.
all of my stuff is messed up. So all of a sudden
Different camera?
yeah, wonder if I can fix it.
You could just lift the lid on this camera and we could use this camera.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
My battery is dying. I think my kids unplugged my.
Oh.
Hold on, it's not going to
Okay.
die though. Let me plug it in real quick.
Okay. Plug it in, plug it in. Talk amongst yourselves. Hey, my
All
friend,
right,
my
here we go.
friend, my friend Daniel Drazinovich is in the live chat. He joined us, and my friend Christopher Rice. So we got some toxic masculinity in the live chat
Great.
now.
Great.
Do you happen to remember what we were just talking about before the
Yeah.
technical? Oh yeah. I remember. Okay. So yeah,
Okay.
I'm always bashing the right, and then the left, I kind of ignored the left, and then I was very friendly with Father James Martin. So I think people think that, people probably think that I'm left, like I'm sympathetic to the left. But it's only I've said this before, but I'll just say it again to you. It's only because I'm not tempted by the left. I'm tempted by the right. The right's offering me everything that I want, the tradition and the manliness, and all this is like, the rose-colored glasses, looking at the past, how wonderful it was in the past, and all the good old days in the church. I used to be so good, and
Yeah.
I'm tempted by all that stuff, and morality, sexual morality, and all that stuff. I'm very tempted by that. That's why I'm sort of annoyed with the right. Whereas the left, like, they just want to have fun. They want to have sex, and they want to have food, and they want to, I can sympathize.
They want to be
Yeah,
worldly.
they want to be worldly. I sympathize 100%. I am worldly. I love food. Like I told you, I'm still like dealing with the sexual stuff. I'm firmly with the rad trads when it comes to sexual morality. Like, I do not want to dance with the devil, but he's still sending me stuff. But and I encourage him by looking when I shouldn't look on the street or whatever, someone's a sexy woman or whatever. But I shouldn't do that, right? Should guard the eyes. But I'm blaming only myself, but I'm a weak man and I find women attractive, whatever.
But that's the thing, is like a lot of these rad trads, so to speak, they would blame the woman. They would. Because they don't have custody of the eyes, and they haven't don't have custody of their heart either. And that's something that I talk about, is like, what are we told? We're told to rend our hearts, not our garments. And you think of the Pharisees just tearing their garments every time there was something offensive going on. And that's not what the Lord asks of us. He doesn't want you like rending your garment, like, oh my gosh, this is the worst thing ever. It's like, no, protect your heart. Focus on your interior disposition. I'm not saying that women shouldn't dress modestly. Yes, like that is super important. But like everything in our faith, it's not either or, it's both and. And like, we have to hold ourselves accountable, all of us. Full stop.
Absolutely. I've admitted this before, but when I live in Montreal, and I work in Montreal North, which is, it's a lot of immigrants, whatever, which I'm happen to be pro-immigration just because I'm illiterate when it comes to politics and economics. I just like the diversity
You
of.
might change your mind.
I just happen to like the diversity of the food, the music, the culture, and the people. I
Yeah.
happen to like that, but I'm completely ignorant when it comes to economics, politics, and whatever. So don't blame me if I'm pro-immigration. It's just because I don't know any better, okay? And I like people. I like people. But my point here is I work in Montreal North, and I see a lot of Muslim women dressed very conservative, very modestly, and I do not like the full thing. I do not like that.
No.
I do not like that. But I do like the modest dress of the Muslim women, and I find it attractive in a good way, in a way that's not lusty or whatever.
Yeah.
I find it like it looks beautiful, and like I see the Blessed Mother when I see these Muslim women. That's what I see, and I wonder if conservative Catholic women, they sort of embody that same thing, because the vibe that I get from conservative traddy women is a lot of pride and vanity. I don't see humility. I see a lot of like, oh, look at me with my veil or whatever. It just seems very staged and phony online, but I don't interact with them in real life.
Right.
So what's your take on this whole thing?
Oh, man. Yeah, I think the women I know who are the most humble, they're not online, right? Like the women I know but same can be said about the men too. Like my husband is not online. He doesn't. I think he has a Facebook, and he's almost never on it. And so I think that's something that maybe we think about. I try really hard to be conscientious of how I use social media, and so I guess I'll focus on myself, because there are things that I've seen that I don't like, right? And I think it's easy as a woman to fall into that, because that is how you get clicks. That is how you get attention. I think a lot of Catholic influencers, so to speak, I hate even saying that, but Catholic female influencers, they do this thing often where it's like, I'm going to be modest and I'm dressed modestly, but there's a certain pout that I have, or there's a certain affect that I'm bringing to this. And so, yes, like that is a problem. Like, I think we all have to ask ourselves the purpose of why we're posting something, right? On Instagram, for example, I refuse to use any like face altering filters, because that's an unrealistic beauty standard. I don't actually look like that. And I also want women to have permission to be like normal human beings, and to age normally, and to see what, like, not everything is perfectly curated all the time. I don't know. I try to focus more on my own, but yes, I see what you're talking about, and it's a problem. And that's why I think we all have to be very conscientious of how we use social media. Like, we're going to be held to account for that.
I want to tell you a little anecdote about in real life, like going to a parish here in Montreal, and like anywhere else, it's hit and miss. Like, what's the vibe? What's the priest like? I've met priests who don't believe in the real presence, believe it or not, here in Montreal.
I believe it. I believe it.
All kinds of stories I could tell you. But I was at church this one time, and I have told this story once before, but I'll tell it to you. I want to get your feedback. There was this woman, and I judged her based on her beauty or lack thereof. I'm like, wow, that's a really ugly woman. And because that's the way my brain works. Sorry, excuse me. God forgive me. God forgive me, okay? But I'm very judgy. I'm very judgy. I am. Everyone knows it. I'm very judgy. But she had a couple of kids with her, and I was watching, I was paying attention at the mass, but she was right in front of me, interacting with her children. And I can tell you, her inner beauty was just like shining. When she would interact with her children and with love and that maternal care, it's like she went from ugly to extremely beautiful really quickly. All I was doing was like just observing her. And it's like the power of inner beauty. It's so amazing. It's so amazing. And so I don't beat myself up. Like, yes, I can have an impression, and my first impression could be right or could be wrong. She might have been ugly on the inside. She might have been, but she wasn't. She wasn't. Thank God.
Well, we see the reverse all the time, right? Like women who are extremely beautiful in their exterior, and you get to know them and they're not so beautiful anymore. That's because I don't know if, I'm sure you've heard this anecdote, but people remember how you made them feel and not necessarily what you say to them. So like if you're going to remember how someone makes you feel and not necessarily what they say to you specifically or what they even look like, right? I totally butchered the anecdote, but I think we all have had that experience of just like observing somebody and thinking, wow, that is a beautiful human being, or interacting with somebody who is beautiful on the exterior and going, "Ew, I don't want to be around you ever again. I hope I never see you again." But isn't that the beauty of love, right? The beauty of love is that it is transformative.
Yeah. Oh, I'm looking for my saint here. I don't know if you can see it. Can you see that on your screen?
Is that St. John Vianney?
Yeah, he could read souls, and he met this famous woman, rich and whatever, in France back in the day, whenever he lived. I forget when it was, but with her carriage, she rolled it up, and I'm this and I'm that, and the red carpet rolls out, and she comes out because she wanted to meet this famous guy, right? Yeah. So he was basically just like, "Get away, you stink." Not physically, but spiritually, you stink.
Right.
Spiritually, like, "Get away from me, you demon." And I would imagine the impact on her ego is just like, this man's a fool, or I don't think she was converted. Maybe she was. Hopefully she was, but
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah.
he saw through it.
Good for him. I think, yeah, I think of Padre Pio too. How many times did he tell people in the confessional, like, get out? You're not ready to go to confession, or you're not confessing this sin, and you need to go do this. I mean, he would straight up
Wow.
tell people in the confessional, get out. You're not sincere. Yeah.
We here in Montreal, I don't know if you know, but we have our own saint. We have we have a couple, but we have uh Saint Brother Andre Bessette. I don't know if you heard
Yes,
about him.
I have actually a relic, a third
Oh,
class
no
relic
way.
of his. Yeah, it's on my mantle right now.
No
Yep.
way. How did that come
Yeah.
about?
Very strange. I don't know. I think someone in my family had it and gave it to me because I'm like, for the longest time, I've been pretty much the only practicing Catholic.
Ah,
Yeah, so I think my
wow.
mom had it. She found it maybe in her grandmother's belongings after she had passed, and maybe my mom was going through it and thought I would like it. So yeah, now it sits on my mantle.
Wow, very cool. So there's a big oratory that he built to Saint
Yes,
Joseph, and it's
Joseph. Yep.
beautiful. You should come. It's not the physical beauty of the building, which is just what it is, but it's got a certain, you know, 50s or 60s architectural style, which I'm not that crazy about, but whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But there's something about it because he's there, his body's there, his heart's there on display, and
Mm-hmm.
it's about, to me, it's about him and Saint Joseph, and of course Jesus, Mary,
Yeah.
and it's a beautiful oratory. And I also went recently to the tomb of another saint that we have here in Montreal. In it's You might be excited to hear about this saint because she's a woman, and I think she's the first Amerindian saint, Catherine Tekakwitha, Kateri,
Oh
Saint
yeah,
Kateri.
Saint Kateri Tekakwitha.
Have you heard about her? How do you say it?
Oh yeah, Saint Kateri Tekakwitha.
Kateri Tekakwitha. She
Yeah,
sells seashells by the seashore.
yeah, you got it.
So pretty cool saint
Yeah,
to have access to. I went to her tomb by accident, like I was just biking with my
that's
wife.
really funny. Okay, so today I went and saw the relics of Saint Jude. Saint Jude
Oh,
his relics were at a parish. So I actually met Father Carlos Father Carlos Martins too today, and I might be getting him on my podcast next year. So that's pretty sweet. But
wow.
yeah, and it was funny because I saw him on Pints of the Aquinas. That was like one of the episodes I did listen to. And I realized, oh my goodness, I've met him. He came and did a relic tour several years ago. And I was like kind of doing security for him with the relics to make sure nobody did anything outrageous because there were 150 relics and like covens of witches come and follow him and all this wild stuff. So I actually had already met him. And so it was fun to meet him again today. But yeah, seeing St. Jude, that was very, very powerful today. I think I just must have like, I'm starting to realize I might actually have like a discernment of spirits charism, which would make sense if I was seeing demons and stuff as a child. But there have been a couple of times I've been around relics and just like overwhelmed by the Holy Spirit, just suddenly like like a wall. I don't know. I can't describe it. It sounds a little bit too charismatic. I was telling some friends today, if I was like Pentecostal, maybe I would say baptized in the Holy Spirit or something, but I just don't know how to describe it. It's like being completely stupefied. I don't know. Like that's the only way I can describe it. And there have been moments I've experienced that, but today, so first time that I was overwhelmed with it was encountering a first class relic of Saint Gemma Galgani.
Oh,
And then today in the sanctuary, seeing the relic of Saint Jude, it was like, my brain
wow.
just stopped working.
Wow.
So yeah, that was really sweet. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I have a devotion to Saint Jude. I have a devotion to a bunch of saints, obviously, but
I'll send you a third class relic. I got a bunch of prayer cards and stuff. I should
oh,
send
you
you one.
do? Yeah,
Yeah.
sure. We can.
Would you like
Well,
that? Would
you
that
know,
be
of
okay?
course, of course, of course. Yeah, I want the Holy Spirit. But but in all seriousness, I don't know that much about Saint Jude, and I often ask my guests, like, can you tell me something about him? Like, you know what I mean? Was he one of
Mm.
the apostles? What did he do? What did he do in the
Yeah, he was one
Bible?
of the
What did he
apostles.
do in
Yeah.
the Bible? Like,
So he was I think he was the cousin of Jesus and the brother of James the Lesser.
oh,
And he wrote
I have a
this
devotion
the
to him too. Is he the one that wrote the epistle?
so
The
St.
lesser?
Jude is the one who wrote the small epistle of
No,
Jude.
which James wrote the James
Oh,
epistle?
James the Lesser. I'm not sure if like
Well, no
James
one
the
know.
Lesser
No
or
one
James the
knows.
Greater. Yeah.
I'm sure
I don't
someone
know.
knows, but my guests don't know.
No, I don't know. I'm not an expert. I was just reading about St. Jude today because they have now with these traveling displays, he has these huge banners with information. We're kind of going through it a little bit quickly because I had all 5 of my kids with me and they were getting pretty restless in there. We were waiting for quite a while. But yeah, I mean, St. Jude, I'm trying to remember how he died, what his martyrdom was. He was martyred with St. Simeon, I believe. Simeon was like sawed in half. And then
Wow.
and then St. Jude's martyrdom was also extremely gruesome. Yeah.
Do you remember what he said in his epistle?
No, no.
I'll Google it. I'll Google it later, or I'll just read the epistle. I mean,
Yeah, it's the shortest one in the entire New Testament.
cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
I could read that tonight. Well, I'm in the habit of, I used to be in the habit of reading the Bible, like all 73 books once a month. But
What? How
yeah,
did you do that?
speed reading.
That's incredible. But then like do you do any Lexio? Like how is it
No,
soaking in?
well, my mission was to impregnate my brain with the Bible. So
Yeah.
I didn't even care if I was consciously aware of what was going on. I was listening to it
Wow.
on my bike as I bike to work, I bike back. So I was just like impregnating my brain with the Bible. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping that there's some still in there. But
I'm sure I've listened to and read the,
yeah,
Epistle of St. Jude,
of
but
course.
yeah, I mean off the top of my
You'll
head, no.
recognize it. You'll recognize it as soon as you see a
Yeah.
passage or whatever. And maybe I'll Google it right now. But my point here is that, I'm in the habit of reading the missal, like the daily readings at the mass and that sort of
Mm-hmm.
thing. That's sort of my bare minimum Bible thing that I do now.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because I don't want to make it all about me, but since COVID, I've been going through sort of a rough patch with my, practice and
Yeah.
prayer life suffered, whatever. I still pray
Yeah.
a lot. I can still pray like half an hour in the morning, half an hour in the evening, whatever, and a couple of noonday things. I do a 3 o'clock quickie for the Divine Mercy, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I do my rosary, but I do my rosary on my bicycle on my way home, So it's kind of
Mm-hmm.
like, I do a lot of prayers, but the quality's not there. And in
Yeah.
terms of spiritual reading, I still do spiritual reading, but not as much as I used to, and I want to do more. And what was the other thing? Spiritual reading. And well, yeah, the Bible, I've sort of like haven't been diving into the Bible as much, although I am working on a project. It's on the back shelf right now, but I want to bring it to the front. A Bible game, like a computer game where it's not gonna excite the young people, but anyone who's interested in the Bible, it might be somewhat
Yeah.
interesting. So it's always in the back of my mind, when I think about the Bible, and I listen to Protestant radio. I wanted to ask you about Protestant radio. It can be pretty hit and miss, but when it hits, wow, it's pretty good because they're not shy to bring emotion into their preaching.
Yeah.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
so it could be very moving and powerful. And when I'm at work driving around, I slap on whatever Christian radio can find, and it's always Protestant. There's never a Catholic channel. So what's your takeaway from the Protestant world, given the fact that often, like with the Muslims with their modest dress, often people, when we neglect something in the church, God allows people outside of the visible boundaries of the church to put it into our faces. So different Protestant groups will often emphasize something that's Catholic, which we have been neglecting. So with that sort of context in mind, how do you feel about the Protestant cultures? Because there's so many different cultures. And what's your takeaway? What's the good side? What's the bad side for you personally?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because my in-laws are Protestant, and my in-laws are, I mean, I don't know if they all feel this way still, but growing up where we did, pretty much the mentality there was, we'll be any kind of Christian but Catholic. And so there was a lot of animosity to Catholicism. I remember when I first moved there, I was, in 7th grade, I think. And the first week on the school bus, some of the kids on the bus spit in my face because I was Catholic and going to hell. The kids were pretty nasty. And even in my in-laws, I mean, I have one sister-in-law I believe she's Lutheran. I don't know. They were church hopping for a while, I think. And then my other in-laws, some of them are evangelical, and they sort of have like a pre-tribulation rapture theology thing going on, dispensationalism. So there's that. And I don't think they would even know the terminology to describe what they are. Like, it's sort of low info. Like, I listen to my pastor and I read my Bible and I listen to some people on YouTube. Like, that's kind of what it is. As far as I can tell, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. And then I think about the kids I was friends with in high school. What I loved about them is that they loved being Christian. And like the Catholic kids where I grew up, it was pretty loosely Catholic, I would say, like not very strong Catholicism in that area, I think, because it was highly Protestantized. Nope. I'll be upstairs in a little bit. No, you can't come in here when my door's shut. Good night. I'll be up there soon. Good night. My kid's just like barreling here.
She can come on the show. I want everyone on the show.
You get out, Avery. She wants me to pretend like she's not even here. All right. So anyway, yeah. So what I loved about them, I went to like the International House of Prayer in Kansas City with them even. Oh yeah. So I've seen it all. I wasn't afraid to be exposed to that. And I left and I didn't feel more Protestant. Like it didn't make me want to become Protestant. I just always felt a very strong conviction that the Catholic Church was true. And even in the times when maybe I have started to question, there was a while I considered Judaism because I was struggling with Catholicism. And John, you need to go and shut the door. I'm going to have to lock the door. You're going to lock it for me? Sweet.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Cute.
And anyway, he's not gonna stop. My older two love being in the spotlight. Anyway, so I remember leaving and being like, yeah, I'm definitely Catholic. And then the times when I have questioned my Catholicism, I was like, Protestant is not convincing to me at all. So either if the Catholic Church is wrong, then I have to go further back, or there is no God. And if there's no God, like that doesn't make sense to me either intellectually. So I'm like, there has to be a God. So either Judaism and Islam is wrong. So it was like basically that's what it left for me. And then I sort of was like, okay, I guess it all hinges on whether or not Jesus is who he says he is. And I just came to the conclusion that I do believe he is who he says he is, and therefore I must be Catholic because that is the church he established. So I don't know. Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think the good things that we could take away from Protestantism would be perhaps they're not afraid of the Holy Spirit. Like, I don't know. And I'm not saying that we all need to be charismatics, but I think we have a problem with disintegrating or separating the intellect and the will, like our emotions from our rational selves. And so you have people who are so rational and not feeling, they lack that empathy. Like they would be the Jewish guy who would leave the Samaritan on the
Hmm.
side of the road. They would.
Yeah.
And they don't think they would be, but they would, because they would be too hung up on the law. I think a lot of the time their intellect would say, nope, I don't want to be unclean. And then on the other hand, you have people who are like way too emotional that they totally disregard what the church teaches out of a sense of false compassion. Or women have a tendency to become very hysterical about things. And like that's something that we tend to struggle with. And so again, it's like you have to bridge this gap and bring the intellect and the will together in a way that you can be a conduit of the Holy Spirit, which often is more of an emotional connection. When you're connecting with other people and evangelizing, than an intellectual one, but you have to have the intellectual backing for it to be effective.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to keep you till you tear yourself away from this. So you'd let me know. I think you have what's it called? You're able to stand up for yourself. You have that inner strength where you can say, "I have got to go" or whatever. So
I'll let you know.
I'm not worried about it. I'm not worried about it. But I'm just going to keep talking. Okay.
Go right
So
ahead.
there's a little anecdote I heard on the radio, on Protestant radio today. They were very happy and excited to present this guest, and he told his story. He used to be a Catholic priest for decades or whatever, and then he found Jesus and he gave his life to Jesus, and now he's
He
not.
didn't invite Jesus in the Eucharist. Give me a
Apparently
break.
not. Apparently
Oh.
not. Okay, apparently not. So he realized, he had an encounter with Jesus, and Jesus told him, "Depart from me, I never knew you." And so anyway, the long story short is he realizes now, God help him, that he's once saved, always saved, and whatever, and that he doesn't need works. He could just, he's in.
But what about St.
He's
James?
in.
St. James literally says faith without works is dead. I don't understand why we just ignore these things. I just can't.
Just remove James from your Bible, problem solved.
Problem solved. What about Matthew? I mean, in Matthew chapter 7, our Lord says, "Get away from me, I never knew you." There will be many who will say, "Lord, Lord," and they will not enter the kingdom of heaven. I will say, "Get away from me, I never knew you."
Yeah.
But then they will say, "But I even prophesied in your name." It's like, I don't care. I don't know you. Like, I don't.
It's
Lord
amazing.
Jesus,
It's
have
amazing.
mercy.
It's amazing. It really is disturbing. It's disturbing for me to listen to a Catholic, because I think it was
It's a scandal. Yeah.
Saint Bernadette Subaru might have been the one who said, I always forget, might have been the one who said, "I only fear bad Catholics," and that's kind of where I'm at, and
Yeah.
because God works with us where we are, and He's got a plan, and He's giving us sufficient graces to be saved, and some people will abuse their free will and they'll end up in hell. Like that's a fact.
Right.
It's eternal and you can't get out. That's real, okay? But God doesn't want people to go to hell. So, it's very troubling and disturbing when I see Satan at work with his slippery little lies,
Mm-hmm.
keeping people out of the Catholic Church or taking them out of the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
And my hero in the Old Testament, my hero, the patriarch, is Noah. I love him most of all because I had a hatred of him when I was a Satanist. I hated Noah. I didn't know why, but I hated him.
That's so interesting.
Because people would say, like, if I said something controversial about David or whatever, like criticizing King David, whatever, they would say, "Oh, you're anti-Semite, whatever." And I say, "No, I'm an anti-Noahite. It's not Shem I hate, it's Noah." So that was my thing, when I was a Satanist. But I think there's a reason why Satan inspired a hatred of Noah in me. It's because he was the only righteous one. And, he built the ark, and the ark is a type of the church.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm very, very, not obsessed, but I have a great regard for
so
his
interesting.
story.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it ties in with my young earth creationism. So I've got more of proximity, with that story and the different stories in Genesis, because I'm that much closer to the garden in time, right? Like, I don't have millions of years separating me from Adam and Eve. I've got, 7,000 or whatever it is.
Yeah,
So
that's really interesting.
That's something that you might want to meditate on and pray on, is just the proximity to the garden, Forget the theological arguments, certainly forget the natural science arguments for a young earth, but
Yeah.
for belonging to a universe where the Garden of Eden, the historical events in the Garden of Eden took place, 7,000 years ago or something like that, it's quite a different headspace to having millions of years, because it could just be like you sort of go into chill mode, casual mode, whereas I'm like in the bushes hiding from God with Adam and Eve. Like that's where I am.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
that. I love that.
Wow. Yeah. Definitely something to think about. That's really interesting.
For sure. Have you met a lot of so-called young earth creationists, for lack of a better term?
No, I mean, it's not like the creation is like young earth creationists, that whole debate is actually one that I have been totally disengaged on. I'm not really sure why. So I feel like I don't know anything about it, like at all. This is like one area that I really don't know anything. And there aren't many, like, I don't think that there are many areas in the church and theology where I can say that. I mean, this is like the area for me that I literally know nothing.
This may be providence. Woo! I was sent to you. I was sent to you. Dear. But anyway, I'm just being silly. But the Lord does work in mysterious ways. Maybe you'll get something from this. But yeah, there's a lot to dig into there. And if you do have me on your podcast, then we can talk about that, among other things.
Yeah, that would be interesting. Yeah, I'd like to do that.
Is there anything else you want to touch on before you go and hang with the kids? They're up late. No. Why are they up so late?
My kids have been on a bedtime strike. So 8:30 has been like, especially my oldest. lots of bedtime strikes. So I don't know. I think there's some sensory things going on there. Yeah. She's shaking her head no, but that's what I think. That's what I think.
Is it true that you're a twin? Are you an identical twin or a...
I'm a fraternal twin. Mm-hmm.
Fraternal.
So yeah. Okay. Not identical. I look actually almost identical to my oldest sister, ironically enough. If you saw us in public together, you would think we were twins, except for that I'm 4 inches taller than her. My twin sister and I, a lot of people growing up didn't even think we were related. So.
And no brothers, you said, right?
No, I have a stepbrother and a half brother. My half brother is the one that's 17 going on 18. Mm-hmm.
Okay, but no full brother.
No.
Okay. Well,
not that I know of. I mean,
I feel bad like keeping you away from your family. So I'm gonna let you go. I'm gonna go against my natural instincts here and let you go and take care of your family. And it's been a pleasure meeting you. You're like I said before going live, you're like a light and a joy and very natural and easy, very, very casual and chill and natural and fun to chat to. So I hope you come back. And,
yeah, I'd totally be open to that.
And I hope you'll have me on your thing just so we can talk some more. And then I hope you'll send me all your cool friends
all
and
my
connections,
contacts.
all your contacts. Yeah. Just mail me your Rolodex or whatever.
Yes, you'll have to send me your address. I can get you the relic, the 3rd class relic of St. Jude too.
Sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So thank you so much. God bless you. And as I mentioned earlier, I do enroll all my guests in a perpetual mass. So you're going to get all those graces like just raining down on you and your family, all your your siblings, your parents, living or dead. And
that's amazing. Thank you so much.
Are your parents both alive?
Yes, they are.
And you have more than 2 parents because you have stepdad?
Yeah, I have a stepdad. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool. So lots of graces coming your way. And if you end up in purgatory, they're still going to keep chugging along. So
thank you.
So please pray for me and mine. I'm the only Catholic in my family. I converted in 2009, and it's a messy, really ugly and messy situation in my family. So just put me on your prayer list. Ask Mary to include me in all your prayer intentions and this sort of thing.
Absolutely.
And I'd like to talk to you next time about indulgences, because it's something I like to remind myself of. So it helps to talk to other people about indulgences. Every time we lift our mind to God, we are eligible for an indulgence, a personal indulgence, at least. So something we should remind each other of often. So thank you so much. Take good care.
Thank you.
And God bless you. And please remember me and mine in your prayers, and you and yours are in mine.
God bless you.
Bye. Talk soon.
Bye-bye.